Thank you, Dr. Swamy, for a wonderful presentation and of course a wonderful book, because you have such a huge canvas condensed into just 200 pages, and I know a lot of people in this room are going to start reading it from the Modi years chapters, and I think you have given us a lot of food for thought just now with how you ended it, because India is a spiritual nation, but you have frightened us about the impending crisis. And I think every day in the papers we don't see any signs that we're going to be able to avoid it, or I mean we will have to wait for the crisis before wisdom dawns. Do you think that that is a correct assessment?
The present economic dispensation in the government tells me that the only way we can improve is by first having a crash. Then from the debris we will come out because of our ability to match prices. But I think whatever I've seen come out from the economists in the government, there's no possibility of turning the things around.
I had a question. You have been India's chief corruption fighter for moral and economic reasons, but you do not identify it as a specific factor behind poor economic progress in your book, in this particular book. Why is that?
No, I have pointed out that the incremental capital output ratio, which is a measure of the efficiency in which of use of your capital, is today at a high level of 6. During Narasimha Rao's period, it was 3. So it's a double. That means you have to invest 6 rupees to generate perpetually 1 rupee per year. That's an inefficient way. Japan in its years of growth had in fact 2 incremental capital output was just 2. And if we can reduce this 6 to 3, then and your rate of savings is 36, say, then 36 divided by 3 means your growth rate will be 13%. So the more you are efficient, with the same resources you can grow to a full-fledged, you could beat China within 10 years if China continues in this present decline. We can certainly match the Americans because their American strength is innovation. They are all the time bringing out new things by which production becomes cheaper and more easy to manage. So innovation, now they are drawing on a lot of Indians to do much of the innovations in America. We should have our Indians here focus on innovation, encourage them, so that in our country we can do without crude oil from abroad. We can have hydrogen fuel cells, we can generate power by thorium, the use of thorium, we can generate water for agriculture by desalination of seawater. So these innovations is the focus that we need to give, and that is the reason why we have not had a further acceleration of growth rate, because we have not focused on innovation rate. R&D expenditure as a ratio of GDP in India is just 2%. Even none of the developed countries which have become developed have ever had less than 4%. So we need to double that.
So as a follow-up to what you mentioned, a lot of measures, a lot of very, very practical things that needs to be done. In your mind, is there a sequence to this? For instance, if we are not able to fix the issue of incremental capital output ratio, but we do have a lot of money in the system, that will lead to inflation and inefficient allocation?
No. If you put more and more investment, then you will get what is called the law of diminishing returns. You will get less and less in return. That means you are going along a curve, and the curve bends after some time. But if you bring innovation, then you will go from one curve to another curve to another curve. That will be the jump. So to avoid the law of diminishing returns, you must have innovations.
So another issue, Dr. Swamy, is you talked about abolition of income tax, which will encourage people to save. So at the moment in Bombay, for instance, people are frightened about what happened to their savings. So a key to any of this is institutions that work, whether it's the judiciary, whether it is all the sectoral regulators who seem to have absolutely no accountability. And that is not something that you have, focused on too much. It's not a canvas of your book. So going beyond it, may I request your views on this?
Well, I think the question, it depends on your comparison point. I think our judiciary at the High Court level and the Supreme Court level are still perhaps the best of all the developing countries. Yes, we need to improve it. Even at the lower levels, I find the special courts we have set up, there are a lot of very, very good young people have come.
There are delays, right?
Delays is because we have adopted the English system of the Criminal Procedure Code and the Civil Procedure Code and the Law of Evidence. They provide for delays. If a person we have hold is innocent unless he is proved guilty, and therefore, in order to ensure that his innocence is established, if he is innocent, we give him liberty to delay, ask for time to produce evidence, and so on. So, second, I think lawyers have now become greedy for money, and they mutually agree to accept adjournments. We need the American system where, when in the Supreme Court, the plaintiff will get 20 minutes to present his case. All the aspects of the case are put in print, in writing, and they are available to the judges. Then the respondent will reply in 20 minutes, and then the plaintiff will be able to reply to the reply in 10 minutes. And then the judges go back to their chamber, and almost the same day sometimes the next day, they come out and deliver the judgment. The Supreme Court in America does not accept more than 200 cases a year. And our Supreme Court accepts 200 cases a day. So look at the load that they are carrying. So we need a lot of changes. Second, we have provisions in our law which we are not enforcing. Civil Procedure Code allows for what they call as discovery and interrogatories, which the Americans use to build all the documents, so that you don't take an adjournment for a document. Everything is there, then only the trial will start. And the trial will never last more than 1 month. Because everything is in place, there's nothing to be given adjournments for getting documents. So those changes you bring, then the delay will go. But ultimately, you see, if the judiciary, some parts of the judiciary are corrupt, then some parts of our politicians are also corrupt, some parts of our journalists are also corrupt. No, regulators, you have to find an accountable. The country must hero worship those who do these things, but we don't. We look almost like as if we are spectators in a boxing match, you see. So what we have to do is to root for those people who will regulate properly, those who will fight to extend corruption. My case also, I fight corruption, but people say, no, you got a personal grudge against Chidambaram, that's why he was sent to jail. Now, how do I prove that I don't have a personal grudge? I don't hardly know him. The only thing I know is that he came to Harvard Business School when I was teaching in the Department of Economics. He took my course and failed, that's all I know.
A lot of these things, because of our federal structure, a lot of things that we need to do are actually responsibility of the states. It's not even, the central government can't do anything about many of these things, specifically agriculture. And you have mentioned that we need efficient, transparent, and accountable state governments. This is exactly your words from the book. But the governments by nature are secretive and are unaccountable. That's what we feel as citizens. In fact, Prevention of Corruption Act was diluted last year, at least that's what we see in the papers. And we do not even have a proper Whistleblowers Act, because in the US they are incentivized to speak up. There's a False Claims Act, as you know, the Lincoln's Law. So what could be the solution?
Let's see, first of all, the historical circumstances also have to be taken account. There was an imperialist government in our country. Then after that, they brought the Soviet model. And the commanding heights of the Indian economy committed judicially. During Mrs. Gandhi's time, many ministers said we need a committed judiciary. And the poverty in the country where people are afraid to lose their jobs, which is used against people to make them submissive. But I would say that today we are a much better and freer society than we were 50 years ago. Our people are ready to fight, the people are ready to think. Our judicial system has introduced this PIL, which has led to exposure of so many corruption. So it's a process of improving, but ultimately we have to have an educational system where people are taught, and they are not taught only which Britisher ruled us over time, who was the viceroy, who was not the viceroy. We must now teach our heroes who fought for this country. This country never ever accepted any foreigner to come and rule over you, and they kept fighting against them. Whether it was Rana Pratap, or whether it was Shivaji, or whether it's the Vijayanagara Empire, or the Cholas, or the Ahom dynasty, or Guru Gobind Singh. There was never a period in India when we didn't fight people who came from outside and wanted to loot our country and rule our country. So this character of India is there. And if you go by the Chinese travelers to India in 4th century or the 3rd century and so on, they describe a society of highly truthful people, no poverty, people don't put locks on their doors when they go outside. So the kind of description of India, if you go by these visitors who came to India, you will say, are we the same India as it was there? We have lost all this in the last 1,000 years. And in the interim period, after independence, we should have had a much more open society, but instead we adopted this socialistic model of the Soviet Union, which led to more and more controls of our society. That is changing now, and we need to do it in a more accelerated way.
We'll open it up for a few questions. So I think Balakrishnan has a question. Yeah. One second.
Dr. Swamy, good evening. You have been crying hoarse about the grim situation that is gripping the economy in your books, in your articles, in your tweets and all those things and all that. But the government simply seems to be refusing to face the reality, and it is only coming out with band-aid solutions to the crisis. Is it because of the lack of academic qualifications on the part of the Prime Minister, which you have suggested several times, or is it much more than?
No, Narasimha Rao also did not know any economics, but he had the sagacity to get Manmohan Singh, myself, and listen to it and get an explanation, and then after that he implemented it. That is what we want. The case of Narendra Modi is being brilliant when it comes to interacting with the people and understanding what their problem is. And he has been personally a very hardworking Prime Minister, and he has no scandal associated with his name. All these things are there. But he is, however, running the way he runs the governance is where very few people can go step out of line, and then that will mean that you won't be able to tell if you want that job that he has given to you very badly, then he will not tell him what he doesn't want to hear, and that is this problem today. Take demonetization. If he had prepared for it with 6 times the 100 rupee notes that were, let's say, new 100 rupee notes should have been published 6 times. If you're going to bring in another 2000 rupee note, then you should have at least made sure that it is all printed already and they are the same size as the 1000 rupee note which you are demonetizing, so it could fit the same box in the ATM. We produced a 2000 rupee note which is thinner and smaller than the 1000 rupee note, and it could not be put into the ATM. And a lot of delays took place because of the ATMs that we had. So all this preparation was not there. Who was to tell him that? The Reserve Bank. and the finance ministry, and they did not tell him. They said we are ready fully for it. And that's how demonetization. Nobody objected to demonetization. Now they are criticizing him. So it is, you can't expect a prime minister to be a former professor of economics. Even if he has got no guts like Manmohan Singh, then you will not have an economic reform. But you need a person who is willing to listen and encourage that person to even contradict you, saying that you are taking this line, this is wrong, your demonetization will not work because this is not ready, this is not ready. Or that GST, we are not totally prepared, there is no computer program for distributing of the taxes collected. These things should have been pointed out. I have done it in the parliament, but we have lost 1 year, 2 years. This GSTN, for example, which was the body which was supposed to produce the computer program, consisted of majority of private parties. I said, why this should be private parties? This should be government. Government has the capacity. It has a computer division which produces very good computer programs. So finally after 1 year he did nationalize GSTN, removed all the private parties. But in the process we have paid a very heavy price. Today GST is a terror for most people. How many forms you have to fill, upload it. They are in rural areas where they have small shops, they are afraid that because there is no electricity for their uploading. So all these problems have made the collection of the GST fall very sharply. So these are the areas where he should encourage people to tell him on his face that no, this can't be done. That I think he has not yet developed that temper.
Mr. Jagannathan.
Dr. Swamy, I've tried to glance at the book in the time that we have, and you have started with a very correct approach of the history, trying to understand how British has imposed the imperialism and the corruption inbuilt into the society, which we are still fighting. And as a solution, you have very correctly said, trust the entrepreneur or trust the people, otherwise you can't get what you are looking for. And for last 5 years, we are fighting corruption in the correct manner to the extent possible, but without a transition period, because it's not just income tax, abolishing tax is not the solution. The implementation or administration has to be rightful without the corrupt psychology. And that can be there if their powers are limited in an extent that they cannot question unlimited 10 year, 20 year, 30 year when the system was corrupt. There needs to be a limitation, that is something. And second thing which I think you have not touched at all is corruption in judiciary. Today, the judiciary, even High Court and Supreme Courts have become highly corrupt. Tribunals are certainly corrupt. And don't have the common man or the citizen, don't have any inkling of what to do, what rights we have, how to fight corruption apparent on the face of something.
First of all, I don't agree with you that the High Court and Supreme Court have become highly corrupt. But there is corruption, there is no doubt. I myself have faced one very recently when I was chasing a commercial company and they got an order which clearly seems to have been by corruption. But these are things that we have inherited and we must fight to have it removed. But the way to do it is not to create a sense of, I'm not saying that you are doing it, but I'm saying generally in our country people just say nothing will happen. For instance, in the case of these people whom we are now sending to jail, people say it never happened. They are so powerful, it will never happen. Now those people on Twitter, they used to come every day morning. I used to see a long list of people saying, you are fooling the public, nothing will happen, they will all escape, so on. Now nobody is talking about that, they have all disappeared from my Twitter, I am not able to trace them. But the fact is, we must have a positive attitude that if you say that today we are more corrupt than 20 years ago, I don't agree. If you say today that somebody can declare an emergency, I don't agree. Today nobody will dare to declare an emergency. So would you if you compare the Supreme Court during the emergency when they said the government can take under emergency the life of somebody without a trial, even suspended their fundamental rights. Only one judge stood up, that was Justice Khanna, and we have forgotten him now, but certainly in future we will remember him. But the fact is that it was much worse before, and this perspective should be there as part of our justifiable grievance that this is not going right and that is not going right. But at the same time to say that we have to further improve and not that we are a hopeless case.
Mr. Sada?
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
There is a lot of talk about reduced saving rates. But isn't it saving rates are being reduced? You say everybody says savings have gone down. But isn't it a fact that this was encouraged by some imported economists and the finance minister at that time, I think Mr. Chidambaram, encouraged people to consume more, spend more and reduce the savings. The so-called economists said that saving is foolish, is saving the money. So we can't cry about reduction in savings now, and there is no attempt to reverse the whole flow now.
Well, you have a point. The fact of the matter is that that is also part of the same problem. If somebody comes from abroad and occupies a high position, then we expect that he should not be under pressure to do what the finance minister tells him to do. That means that the person you got is a man who doesn't have the character. The whole idea is that we should now celebrate regularly those who stand up. We don't do that. We are all the time apprehensive. In fact, one of the comments I get is, aren't you afraid that you might be murdered? So I said, yes, I can be murdered only once, but you will be murdered every day. So that is the issue, you see. People here must wake up to the fact that if you celebrate somebody's honesty, then others will also want to be honest. But if you say, look, see what happened to him, he was murdered, then I think others will also be frightened and will not come forward.
I think on that note, we bring this program to a close. I can see a lot of people are standing in a queue to get signatures, so I'm really sorry. I wish we could keep on, but Dr. Swamy, like I said, has a flight to catch. So it's my pleasant duty to bring... Exactly. So please wait for 2 minutes. Allow me to make a vote of thanks. I think that's only fair. It's my pleasant duty to bring this program to a close. Really big thank you to Dr. Swamy for being with us today and sharing his brilliant insights. To Professor Vaidyanathan, who's also catching a flight and has had to leave. And a special thanks to Ajit Sanghvi and Malini Sanghvi and Ashish Chauhan, MD of the Bombay Stock Exchange, for helping us organize this program. Mr. Jagdish Shetty for the hectic coordination, Dr. Ajay Sanke and Mr. Mahesh Joshi, and all members of the Virat Hindustan Sangam for their help and support in organizing this program, to Kalpit Kshatriya and his team at the BSc for their patience and help, and finally, all of you whose presence here has made this a wonderful event. Thank you so much.